Hi, my name's Tim Hanlin. I'm the Managing Director of the Australian Climate Exchange, and I'm also the Principal Author of the Emissions Measurement, Management and Action Process, or EMAP. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do I know what I'm getting when I buy a carbon credit or an emissions offset? Well, I thought I'd show you this slide, which basically gives you the anatomy of a credit, how it's created, and as we go through that process, I'll point out to you the things that you need to look out for when you are looking to assess the quality of a credit. So here on the vertical axis we have the quality, and we have the characteristics of an offset or a credit as it is being created. Okay, so the first thing, we have to start with the project design document. Okay, and it's a bit like building a house. This is the foundation of the house. If there's something wrong with the project design, the whole basis of the credit, the whole basis of the offset actually can fall over. Okay, so when we look at the project design should have in it the basis for why a ton of CO2 has been taken out of the atmosphere or has been avoided, which is the basis for the credit. What is the baseline or business as usual case that we measure against in terms of creating this offset? Who's going to measure it? How often is it going to be measured? What scheme is it accredited under? Who's going to verify it? Who's going to validate it? All that information is contained in the project design document, and it forms the basis for everything that goes forward. The next thing is the project design document needs to be independently validated, and the main word here is independent. So the auditor who is looking at the project design and validating all the assumptions that are contained in that project design basically have no other interest in the project other than as a fee for service. And the validator obviously must be qualified and validating against a recognized standard. That validation report is then sent to the accrediting body. Now, the accrediting body can be any organization from an NGO through to the Clean Development Mechanism, or CDM, executive board. Now, obviously, the more credible the accrediting body, the higher the quality of the credit. So the accrediting body will assess the report from the independent validation expert, and then will decide whether or not to register the project as an official creator of credits or offsets under its program. Once the project is up and running and you're measuring the amount of CO2 equivalent that is being avoided or sequestered or taken out of the atmosphere, those measurements are then collated, and then they need to be audited, or as it's often referred to, verified. Once again, the verification report must be carried out by an independent auditor who is qualified under and accredited under the scheme. The independent auditor in some schemes, such as the Clean Development Mechanism, for instance, needs to be different to the organisation or the individual that carried out the validation report. But that's not necessarily important as long as it fits in with the accreditation rules of the particular scheme or the particular process that the credit is being verified against. Okay. Once they're verified, that creates the credit, and then they need to be registered somewhere. Now, this is a very, very important step, because unless you buy a credit or an offset where the ownership of that credit is registered in the name of the vendor, and the credits themselves have unique identifying numbers. And the vendor shows that there is a way that you, once the transaction has gone through, can actually get your ownership registered in a recognized electronic registry for that serial range of credits. Then you may as well be buying Rolexes on a street corner, because it doesn't matter how good all the documentation is, unless your ownership can be registered in a recognized and independent electronic registry, you don't own anything and they're useless to you. So if there's any gap between the verification, or the audit, and when those credits are registered in a recognized registry, there is a possibility for them to be sold to several different people, or indeed used by somebody to offset their own emissions. And so you may be buying something that is frankly useless. So that's a very, very important step. And the other step, of course, in terms of assessing the quality of the credit is how fungible is it? What programs can it be used in? What trading schemes, what compliance schemes, what voluntary schemes can I use this credit in? Okay, so if we're talking about compliance instruments, that's as far as the story goes in terms of quality. But if we're talking about the voluntary market, the source of the credit or offset becomes very important. Some types of projects, like tree planting, for instance, or avoided deforestation, for instance, in the Amazon, some people consider that to be a very worthy project, and so therefore the source will actually increase dramatically. But then some people see projects like in HFC 23 destruction projects, where they're capturing and destructing an industrial gas in China, as of a lower value or a lower quality, because indeed the only reason why those credits are being able to be created at all is that China is allowing the venting of those industrial gases when no other country allows that, which is the only reason that it is in fact a legitimate credit. So within the voluntary space, those credits are often given a wide berth. And of course the whole thing floats on a sea of transparency. So how transparent each one of those steps are, and each one of those characteristics of the credit are, will actually increase its quality. So now you know what to look for. You should be able to buy credits and offsets with confidence.